that little calamity took me 3 laps to get over. Fortunately, they let me restart the race when the group came past again. This is the last race of the Vets series, and since if I finish this race I've won the overall, I had one job to do, and unfortunately, as you'll see, didn't really go to plan. So in this series we've got me sitting in first with a fairly healthy buffer, and we've got Nick Steele sitting in third, 1 point ahead of fourth, and about 3 points behind second. The guy who's sitting in second is a breakaway artist. He will get points if he stays away, but he won't point in a sprint. So the only thing I had to do was make sure that he didn't get away in a breakaway. There was another guy sitting 1 point behind Nick, and so those 2 riders were the 2 that I had marked. So my plan for today is to do exactly the same as I did the other day, pick the 2 riders I needed to focus on and just sit on their wheel. If they went for an attack, I had to jump on them, otherwise I was just going to sit in the wheels and try to lead Nick out at the finish. 242, Joe Fitton, he's just got up ahead in that little gap, so I've got to go with this, and I jump on it and close it down. So the 2 riders we care about are 214, which is Anthony Mead, he's a really strong breakaway rider in the red USG kit, and 242, Joseph Fitton, he's in the SAF blue and white kit. We've just finished one of the Preem sprints, and I can see there's a couple of guys going off the front, but my teammate Nick, he's on the front at the moment, so I'm going to move up the front and just find out whether or not this is something we need to worry about.
Do we care?
So a small amount of effort later, we've brought them back, and once again this is now just a time to sit in and see what else happens. However, almost immediately we bring these 3 guys back, who attacks but number 214 and number 242, and at this point absolutely have to go with them. So put down a little bit of power to get across to them. I honestly didn't think that this was a big enough effort to split anything off. And as we're going around over the next lap or so, I can see that there's a few people behind us, and I just made the assumption that the group was all still together. What I didn't realise though is that the 2 people who were sitting on my wheel had actually gapped the rest of the field, and so we were now a breakaway of 5. And this is where I think I made a really big mistake. So, of course, my job is to try to stop these 2, 214 and 242, from getting away. So obviously I'm not going to do any work with them. So of course I'm just thinking I'm just going to sit on and wait for the peloton to bring them back. But who's going to bring them back? My team's probably not, because they're chasing me. They should, but they might not. And then there's 2 other guys from 2 other teams, which means that we've got a break of 5 with 5 different teams. Who's going to do the chasing? So what do I do here? What I do is I sit on until I realise that the group's not coming back. At one point these 2 by themselves just about put most of a lap into the peloton. At which point I figured I might as well start working, otherwise I'm just going to have a fairly boring half an hour of rolling around and then out sprint them at the end. What should I have done? So I reckon I could have done 2 things. One, I could have sat right on the back the whole time and done absolutely nothing in the hope that maybe it comes back. That wasn't going to work, and as I said, I got bored and ended up just pulling through, because I'm not here to sit around for 45 minutes doing absolutely nothing. The other thing I could have done is I could have got on the front and actually tried to disrupt it a bit. So I could have waited for 214 Anthony Mead, waited for him to finish his turn, got on the front and then just soft pedalled, maybe blocked a bit, made it look like I was working hard. But that would have lasted a few times, maybe a few turns, and then they would have figured out what I'm doing and almost certainly would have just kept trying to attack me. So I think that would have been the best thing to do in terms of a team strategy, is get on the front and disrupt. But I didn't want to do that because that just feels a bit crap, you know? Trying to disrupt a break from the break, I don't know. So anyway, what happened at the end is the 5 of us rolled through to the end. There's an interesting dynamic from Anthony and Joseph too. They are quite happy for me to come to the end with them. They know that I'm going to beat them. I'm a sprinter. Neither of them... well, Joseph's a fairly good sprinter, but I've beaten him every time we've come to the end together. They know that I'm probably going to beat them in a sprint. They know that I'm not going to need to do as much work as them. But they also know that it doesn't matter. From Joseph's perspective, by finishing ahead of Nick, he's guaranteeing himself second. From Anthony's, by finishing ahead of Nick by a couple of places, he's moving up from 4th to 3rd. Doesn't matter if I win or not, they're not going to overtake me in the overalls. So these two have absolutely nothing to lose from me being dragged along with them. And that's really the race, you know. For the next, 30 minutes, these two and a couple of the other two pull through. Eventually I start joining in, and then we get to the last lap. So here we are in the last lap. I guess the only other thing to comment on in this is that there was a fairly strong headwind along the back straight here, so that might have been why we managed to get a break in the first place, because the attack happened into the wind. But other than that, I'm still absolutely shocked that we got such a big gap so quickly. I wasn't expecting that, and it really put the cat amongst the pigeons and changed the outcome of the series. So anyway, here we are in the last lap. I think this is Joe Fitton on the front again. He's just tapping out a fairly steady effort into the wind. At this point, though, the group starts slapping each other on the back. Well done, boys. We've kept away, kept the peloton at bay. The guy from Black Chrome and the guy from Transitions, I think, had both pretty much run out of steam at this point, and it was just the three of us driving the pace. I had nothing to win, nothing to lose, so I offered to do a lead out here. And then the guy from Transitions Drive, where that's Mark Hanberg, he decides he's going to go on the front. Hasn't got much of a sprint, and he's pretty much cooked himself just being with this group at the end. So he leads it out into the bottom corner, does a pretty solid effort, gets up to 55 k's an hour or so, and then I do what I'm always going to do from this point: come through the bottom corner and light it up. Not my biggest sprint. I probably went a bit too long, a bit too early, given that it was a headwind. I think Joe Fitton was on my wheel coming out of the bottom corner, but again, I hadn't done as much work as the two of them, and I was able just to pull it through to the line and pick up another win. Once again, I think I made a really big mistake in not actively disrupting this group from the get-go. Lessons learned for the future. Otherwise, it's been a great series racing with Rocket. Nick Steele got the sprinters, I got the overall, and we got the team's classification in this as well. So a good outing, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks a lot. Take care.